Y'all, BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander deck tech. Today, we're going to look at Aminatou, the Fate Stitcher. This is a Esper-colored Planeswalker Super Friends control deck. This is a very fun deck, and I'm very happy I get to showcase this list. I've been wanting to showcase this deck for quite some time now. So, without further ado, guys, let's get right into this. Aminatou does various things, and primarily her plus ability, we're going to draw a card and we're going to put a card back on top of our library. Her minus is we get to blink out a permanent that we control, and her ultimate is basically clean cup move down. We're going to take all our permanents and rotate the control of them. So if one of your opponents has a very powerful board, we can minus Aminatou and we basically have their board. But if we're spending a lot of time controlling the board and we don't really have that many permanents, that means our opponents are going to have nothing, basically. So, there's that. Let's get into the land base. This is a pretty simple land base. We're running 6 swamps, 7 plains, and 8 islands. There's a lot of basics in this. Now we have Command Tower, which is always a good thing. Now we have Rafine's Tower, Godless Shrine, Watery Grave, and Hallowed Fountain. What I'm seeing we're kind of missing are fetch lands. That way we can go get these lands. Now we have a couple check lands with Glacial Fortress, Drowned Catacomb, and Isolated Chapel. Now we have Temple of Deceit, Temple of Enlightenment, and Temple of Silence as the 3 scry lands. Now we have some removal for our opponent's graveyards with Bojuka Bog. And we have 4 colorless lands. First one is Core Haven, because we're gonna love preventing all that combat damage so we don't take damage. Now we have Maze of Ith, which is a very iconic, your creature is not going to deal damage to me. And similar to Bojuka Bog, we have Scavenger Grounds, so we can deal with our opponent's graveyards. And now we have Strip Mine, in case our opponents have a very pesky land that we can't deal with. We'll just blow it up. Okay, that was the land base. Let me know what y'all thought about that land base in the comments below. And I'd love to hear more suggestions on what we could run. Let's get into the artifacts. First up, because this is Commander, we're playing Soul Ring. We're playing a decent amount of mana rocks. So we have Arcane Signet, Orzhov Signet, Dimir Signet, Azoria Signet. These are a lot of signets. I'm not seeing too many talismans. Me personally, I think the talismans are a little better, but you know, it's personal preference. Okay, now we have some pretty synergistic artifacts. And first up is Sensei's Divining Top. That way we can look at the top 3 cards and arrange them how we want, in case we need to draw a certain spell at a certain time. Now we have a win condition with Altar of the Brood. This one's really pretty because it's kind of shiny. Look at that. Tell me that's not beautiful. Y'all know my absolute love for this card, because it just ends games so fast. Okay, now because we're dealing with Planeswalkers, is Ichor Moon Gauntlet. Ichor Moon Gauntlet is going to allow us to give our Planeswalkers the option of another loyalty ability by proliferating, which just means you get to add counters. But if we get 12 loyalty on a Planeswalker, we can take another turn. And everybody knows how powerful taking extra turns is. But what sets this artifact apart is the fact whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we're going to put a additional counter. So it's almost like we're proliferating every single time we cast anything. Okay, within that, we have Norn's Annex. This card is phenomenal, because this is going to give us the protection from our opponent's creatures by basically taxing them in either paying mana or paying life just to attack us. Similar to like propaganda and stuff, but we'll touch on that a little later. Now we have the Chain Veil. This is a very iconic card and the lore within Magic the Gathering. The Chain Veil, which was worn by Liliana, and basically that's what gave her all her powers. What the Chain Veil does is at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty, we lose 2 life. But we can pay 4, and for each Planeswalker we control, we can activate the loyalty abilities again. Now we have Wishclaw Talisman. Wishclaw Talisman is going to be very good because this is going to allow us to Demonic Tutor, and if we have Animatu as well, we can just force our opponents to give us back Wishclaw Talisman. It's kind of funny. This is a very cool interaction. So, alright. That was the artifacts. Thought about that. Well, let's get to the whole reason we're here. We are running 14 Planeswalkers. I believe my friend just picked the most powerful ones in those colors. So, but starting off is everyone's most hated Teferi 3. This card's insane. I'm pretty sure Wizards of the Coast made a huge mistake by not playtesting this or just not doing anything similar to Oko Thief of Crowns, but we're not in the green color, so we're not running Oko. But if we were, I'm pretty sure he would be running it. Okay. For those of you who aren't aware of what Teferi Time Rattler actually does to your opponent's game, it's completely backbreaking, because his static ability of each opponent can't cast spells only the time they can cast a sorcery basically means if it's an instant, you can only cast it as a sorcery. So if you have spells such as Cascade, where you're able to cast them any other time, it basically nullifies that spell. And that's just the static ability. His +1 is you can cast sorceries as though they had flash, or anytime you can cast an instant. And his -3, we can return stuff back to their owner's hands and draw a card. We can bounce our own stuff to keep recasting it, or your opponent's. Doesn't really matter. Basically, this guy's unfun. And if we're proliferating the counters on Teferi 3, this guy's never going to go away. Okay, now we have a personal favorite of mine with Ashiok Dreamrender. You've seen this Planeswalker in a couple other deck techs of mine. Primarily the graveyard strategy ones, like Muldrotha. If you haven't checked out that video, please do. So, Ashiok has a static ability that's going to prevent our opponents from searching. But we can mill ourselves or our opponents. And once that resolves, you're going to exile your opponent's graveyard anyway. Now we have Dakon, Shadow Slayer. I tried this guy in my Shroom list, and it was okay. But Dakon is pretty much a surveil guy that we can also use to exile our opponent's creatures, and we can put a artifact from our hand or graveyard onto the battlefield if we -6 this. So if you have a very powerful artifact, such as, oh, I don't know, Staff of Nin, Spine of Isha, stuff like that. So, now we have Teferi, Hero of Dominator. This guy can single-handedly win games on his own. He's going to untap lands, we're going to draw cards with it, we're going to deal with non-land permanents that, you know, we can't normally deal with. And if you get the emblem where whenever we draw a card, we get to exile a permanent, yeah, your opponents really aren't going to do much. Okay, now we have Tamio the Moon Sage. This is the original one. Her plus ability is very powerful for the simple fact we just keep plussing this thing, tapping down a creature or a land, and that permanent won't untap. So we can just keep doing this over and over and over. Unless we just want to draw lots of cards. In that case, you -2, we get to draw a card for each tapped creature that player controls. If we have a lot of tapped creatures, which I don't think we will, we can choose ourselves. But this is mainly for our opponent's creatures. And the emblem is pretty crazy too. It's a spellbook effect, which means you have no maximum hand size. But if a card would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, it's going to be returned back to your hand. Now we have the original Liliana Vest. We can force our opponents to discard. We can Vampiric Tutor. Basically search for any card, put it on top of our library, which we can, you know, draw with Sensei's Divani-Top. And if we've killed all our opponent's creatures, we're going to put them all into play under our control. And that sounds like a lot of fun. Now we have Jace Memory Adept. This guy's fun, because there's a lot of cool synergy with this guy. By forcing our opponents to mill, we're going to draw cards. And by having our opponents mill cards, we can use Liliana's ultimate and return all them creatures to our side very quickly. Now we have one I haven't played with too much, with Tevesh Zot. That's a fun name. He's going to make some Thrall tokens as blockers. We can sacrifice another creature or planeswalker. If we do, we can draw 2 cards. He's going to draw us cards, but he's going to allow us to gain control of all commanders. And that's kind of crazy. Now we have Ashiok Nightmare Muse. This one is very cool. I played this one in Standard, and it was very powerful. You can plus it. You get a 2/3 blue and black nightmare token. Whenever that creature attacks or blocks, you get to exile the top 2 cards of your opponent's library. You can -3 it to return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and then you exile a card. But if you ultimate her, you can cast 3 face-up cards from exile without paying their mana cost. What makes this kind of cool is if your opponents have a lot of cards in exile and you ultimate her, you can play those that have been exiled prior. At least I'm pretty sure. If you can't, let me know if that ruling is not correct. Okay, whoops. Now we have Teferi Temporal Archmage. This guy is really good at drawing cards, untapping permanents. You almost never get to the -10, but if we do, whenever we activate a loyalty of a planeswalker, like, you can do that instant speed, which is insane. Okay, now we have Elspeth Sun's Champion. This is still a very powerful planeswalker. I don't care what anyone says. It makes blockers, it deals with large creatures, and if we create a lot of tokens, we're going to kill our opponents because they're all going to be 3/3 flyers. Now we have Sorin Grim Nemesis. This card was fun too. Basically, you reveal the top card of your library. Each opponent loses life equal to its mana cost. So if we have a lot of higher cost spells, which we primarily do, we're going to nug our opponents for a lot of damage and we get the card anyway. Or we're going to -6, we can deal direct damage and gain life. But his -9 is really cool. We get a large amount of 1/1 Vampire Knight tokens equal to the highest life total. And who doesn't love that? Now we have some bigger dudes like Karn Liberated. I love Karn Liberated. I played this guy in Modern and I love this guy. He just deals with your opponents so well, whether it be exiling cards from their hand, exiling a threat, or if you really want to, you can restart the entire game. Most people don't, so we're just going to keep upticking this or exiling stuff. Now we have Ugin the Spirit Dragon. As I've said before, this is the OG Big Papa King shit. Colorless Planeswalker. He's going to lightning bolt something. He's going to get rid of whatever permanents that are colored. And if you ultimate him, gaining 7, drawing 7, putting 7 permanents on the battlefield, the game is pretty much over. Okay, that was all the Planeswalkers. Let me know what y'all thought about that. We are running some creatures. First up is good old Sad Robot with some Simulacrum. Now we have Stormscape Familiar. This is just a cost reduction for white and black spells, because paying less mana for your spells is very powerful. Now we have Spark Double. Spark Double is very powerful, whether it be a creature, but more importantly, we're going to make copies of our Planeswalkers. Now we have Corpse Knight. Corpse Knight is going to tax our opponents every time a creature enters the battlefield. And within that, we're going to give our creatures Intimidate. Whenever this or another creature leaves the battlefield, doesn't matter if it dies, if it just leaves the battlefield, our opponents are going to lose 1 life. So our opponents are going to lose life when we create creatures and those creatures leave. Now we have Deep Glow Skate. This guy's fun. We're just going to double the amount of counters on all our permanents. And with Aminatu, we can just keep blinking this guy out and making our planeswalkers absolutely ridiculously huge. Okay, now we have Dejuru with Eyes Open. When this guy enters, we get to search for whatever planeswalker we want. But if a source would deal damage to a planeswalker, this guy's going to prevent one of that damage. So our opponents are going to have a hard time killing our planeswalkers. And of course, with any kind of blinky effect, is Felidar Guardian. This is a infinite combo with Aminatu. If y'all don't know how that works, comes in, exiles this, yada yada. It makes a copy of it, blinks it out, yada yada. Stuff like that. Alright, that was the small amount of creatures. Let's get into the enchantments. Is good old Mystic Remora. Basically, your opponents do stuff, we're going to draw cards. Heuristic Study, same thing. Phyrexian Arena. Every upkeep, we lose a life, we draw a card. So we're going to be drawing lots of cards here, which is perfect for any control deck. Now we have Search for Azcanta. This is a little bit slower, but if we can transform this, it's going to transform into this guy. It's going to transform into Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin. This will become a land, and we could pay 3, activate this, and we get to look at the top 4 and put a non-creature, non-land card from among them into our hand. We can do this every single upkeep, so we can continually find what we need to. Okay, now we have a personal favorite of mine with Sharknado, or Shark Typhoon. Sharknado is way more fun to say though, but if you have this out, we're gonna make a bunch of big flying sharks, or you can just cycle this if you need to. Alright, now we have a couple enchantments that are going to synergize with all our planeswalkers. And first up is Elspeth's Talent. We're going to enchant a planeswalker with this. This will just give it another +1 loyalty ability. Basically, this is going to give us Elspeth's plus ability, but on whatever planeswalker we want. Could you imagine Ugin the Spirit Dragon making 3 1/1 soldier tokens? That's just silly. That's really cool. But whenever we activate a loyalty ability of the enchanted one, those creatures get +2/+2 in vigilance. And a planeswalker deck would not be complete without Oath of Teferi. This is going to allow us to activate our loyalty abilities multiple times. And that's insane. Now we have a little protection for all our planeswalkers with Search the Premises. Whenever a creature attacks you, we get to investigate. So we get to draw more cards. And for even more protection, we have Propaganda. And for even more protection, we have Sphere of Safety. Because we are running a decent amount of enchantments, chances are our opponents are not going to have all the materials or mana to even attack us. And just to make sure they don't, here's Ghostly Prison. Because forcing your opponent to pay anywhere from 2 to possibly 7 additional mana for each attacking creature just to deal with all our planeswalkers is kind of silly, and they're not going to do much. Let's get into the instance. We're going to need some counter spells. So, of course, here's counter spell. And Arcane Denial. I've said it before. I think Arcane Denial is severely underplayed. Now we have Ignite the Beacon. This is a instant speed. We're going to look for 2 Planeswalker cards. And because we're playing blue and its commander is Cyclonic Rift. Basically, overload it, bounce all your opponent's stuff, keep your stuff, and we got some spot removal too. Because we're in white, we're playing Swords and Plowshares, Path to Exile, and Mortify. I love the art on this Mortify. This is the original Mortify, and the art is absolutely phenomenal. We got some sorceries for you. First up is Ponder. And what pairs with Ponder? Preordain. Thanks to all the legacy players. Now, in case our Planeswalkers do get destroyed, we're just going to bring them all back with Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. This is going to return all legendary permanents. That's crazy. Alright. Now we have a bunch of ways to deal with our opponent's creatures. With Damn. You can overload this, destroy all the creatures, or just destroy a single target. Supreme Verdict, because we're in blue-white, and Supreme Verdict can't be countered, it's an uncounterable Wrath of God. Now, we have Urza's Ruinous Blast. This is going to be phenomenal, because we're going to exile all non-legendary permanents. So, if our board is primarily all Planeswalkers, they get to stay, and everything else goes away. Now we have a personal favorite of mine, with Terminus. I love Terminus because with Teferi or Sensei's Divining Top, if your opponents are attacking you for lethal, like they created a big board and are attempting to crater hoof you, you're just like, haha, alright, reveal Terminus. They all go away. That's always fun. I've done that a couple times. Alright, now we have Merciless Eviction. This is fun. This will give you the option of exiling creatures, artifacts, or enchantments. Or planeswalkers. I don't think we're going to be choosing that last part. Now we have another miracle card with Temporal Mastery. Because we like taking extra turns. And who doesn't? Okay, now we have another miracle card with Entreat the Angels. Entreat the Angels is going to give us enough 4/4 flying angel tokens that we can pretty much deal with our opponent's board, and yeah, we're just going to smack them in the face with a bunch of 4/4 flying angels. But every control deck would not be complete without Approach of the Second Sun. This is just pretty much, I'm going to win the game. That's all that is. Alright. Well, guys, that was the Commander deck for Aminatou, the Fate Stitcher. Let me know what y'all thought about that. I'd love to hear everyone's opinions. So if you guys have any suggestions on things you would like to see being run in this build, let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, or on Facebook. I'll share it there too. But I just want to hear from you guys about these deck techs, if you're generally enjoying them. My whole goal is to share my Magic experiences with everybody I can. So if y'all could help me out with that, that would be awesome. Alright guys, take care, and I will see you guys in the next video.